Here's just a part of a recent episode of Booked on Rock. Jim Windolf is the author of the brand new book, Where the Music Had to Go, How Bob Dylan and the Beatles Changed Each Other and the World. Dylan never made a big explicit statement about being included on that cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Did he see it as a sign of respect, you think?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. He didn't mention. I've not seen him mention it. He's been asked about the album itself, and so it's like 1978 where Dylan gives an interview and he says he found it overindulgent. But I like. There's an interview his mom gave. Dylan's mother didn't give many interviews in her life, but she gave a couple of great interviews to this writer Toby Thompson, who wrote a terrific book called Positively Main Street that Dylan fans should check out. And she was in Dylan's house a lot in the late 60s in Woodstock, and she said, "Oh, Bob loves Sergeant Pepper. He loves the Beatles." So it's funny to me to think that it was always on, in there, even though Dylan would later say like, "Oh, it's not my thing." So, but I don't know if he mentioned that the fact that he's on the cover. But the funny thing is, his next album, John Wesley Harding, Rolling Stone did a story about that album cover, and they said if you look at the tree on the cover, the faces of John, Paul, George, and Ringo are carved into the tree. And 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 then they asked the photographer, and he said, "Well, I wasn't aware of it, but yeah, if you look, I agree, you can see that in there,"
Wow,
which is the
that is a
weirdest thing.
trip.
And
Oh
then
my God.
and then not only that, but when Dylan did the cover of John Wesley Harding, notice that he's standing with three other guys, right? So it's like he wanted that album cover. So I think he made that album partly as a response to Sergeant Pepper. Like, in other words, you guys are going over the top. I'm stripping it down to simplicity, right? And when he put that album out, he said, he told the record label, no single, no tour, and Dylan said, this was the season of hype, and I didn't want to have anything to do with any hype. And I think that's a dig at the Beatles. And then the cover of that album, aside from the Beatles may or may not be in the tree bark, he's standing there
I'm
with
looking
three
at it
other.
now. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
he's standing.
find it.
So he's standing there with three other guys. These are just friends of his. One is like a stonemason who lived in the area. The two other guys are these musicians. They're called the Balls of Bengal, and they were making an album of their music, Indian music, for Albert Grossman had signed them to like a management deal, and they made a pretty cool album called The Balls of Bengal, I believe is the name of that album. And one of them, especially Dylan, was very close with, and that's one guy and his brother. And but the fact that Dylan is standing on the cover as a foursome to me is kind of a parody of the Beatles. Like, it's four of us on the cover here, and yet the shot is this. He said he wanted it to look like a snapshot in a family photo album, and that's what it looks like. It's just like, it's not a very elaborate picture. It's just like kind of a crummy picture in a way. It's just like, so to me, it's kind of a parody of a Beatles album cover.
It's just the kind of thing he would do.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's fun. I mean, he is funny as hell. They're all, and Lennon too.
Right.
So there's like a funny thing he said was when the Beatles visited him in '66 at his hotel in London. Dylan said, "Are the girls still screaming for you?" And John said, "Yeah, they sure are. We're hoping to get away, get off of that. How about you?" And Dylan said, "Yeah, they're screaming for us, but in a different way, meaning they're booing, they're booing him."
Right. There's a website here. Somebody put up a blog, I think, and they zero in on the album cover and they circle where supposedly
Yeah.
the Beatles are. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Now there's I didn't go this, it is in the weeds enough in this when I wrote about that in the book. There are some people who say that the British edition of that album, on the vinyl, if you can find it, it's easier to see. So I couldn't get
okay.
my hands on a 1968 British copy of the album.
Well,
I've seen pictures of it online. So now it did,
the
you
more I
know,
look at it now, I'm seeing George, I'm seeing Ringo. I don't know, man. I may have to put that up on the screen for the video version of this interview, because maybe that's like what they call that confirmation bias. Like, I want to see it. I don't know.
it could be that's maybe that's what happened to that photographer when they asked him, like, "Do you see?" He's like, "Geez, the weird thing is when I look at it, I think I do see it."
Maybe I do. It's like in the 90s, those books where if you should stare at it long enough, something comes
Yeah.
out, pops out at you.
And sorry, and just another album cover thing. Dylan's next album, Nashville Skyline. There's a Beatles message on that cover. Do you know what it is?
No.
It's incredible. So the guitar he's holding on that cover, George gave it to him as a gift. So George stayed with Dylan and his family for Thanksgiving '68. Dylan and George wrote 2 songs at least together. Um, the night George, after Thanksgiving, George wrote "All Things Must Pass," and Patty Boyd, his wife, Patty Boyd Harrison, said George felt so good. He was so confident after spending time with Dylan, and Dylan approving of him as a singer and songwriter. He felt great because the Beatles had been, trashing him, or he felt that way anyway, disrespecting him. So George gives Dylan this Gibson guitar, this lovely Starburst finished guitar, and Dylan's holding it on the cover of Nashville Skyline. And he told the photographer who took that picture that he doffed his cap. He's smiling, he's doffing his cap a bit. That's to say thank you to George for the guitar.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that amazing?
Unbelievable. I'm looking at it here.
And George, now there's a lot, guitar geeks. I went deep into this guitar stuff. It's a lot of confusion because George, that guitar, a Gibson, and somebody's going to kill me. Is it a Gibson? It's not a 360 because that's the name of the Rickenbacker. I forgot what it's called. Anyway, that specific Gibson guitar, George got another one when he got back to England that he shared with Lennon. So there's some confusion over like, wait, if George gave Dylan this guitar and then he's playing it on Here Comes the Sun, did he take it back or what? It's like, no, the answer is he gave Dylan the guitar. When he got back to London, he and Lennon got the same kind of guitar that they shared. And George did record Here Comes the Sun with that very guitar, but a different one, but the same model. So it's a lovely guitar.
Listen to the full episode wherever you get your podcasts.